I'm Erik Linask, coming to you from IT Expo West here in Los Angeles, and I'm chatting now with 8x8's CMO, Debbie Jo Severin. Debbie Jo, welcome.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Happy to have you guys at the show, as always. Let's get started by talking about, you guys had a pretty neat announcement earlier this week.
Yes, on Tuesday we announced a new service, Virtual Meeting. It's a web conferencing service. You can do audio conferencing or web conferencing or audio and web. Very similar to what you might see with a lot of the popular conferencing solutions that are out there today. But what we like about it in the development is it was built in Flash, so there's no download, no plug-in, works on any web browser or computer. And for us, it's really, if that were our core business, one might say, why are you entering into that business to compete with established services that are out there? But what it really is it integrates with our hosted PBX offering and takes what is considered just a phone service into really unified communications. And I think you'll see 8x8 moving more and more into that space over time and throughout. We'll probably make another announcement by the end of the year.
Oh, I certainly look forward to hearing that.
Great.
Does this come from customer demand?
Well, I think when you think about where communications is today and what you think might happen, everything from Google Voice, what might happen with smartphone apps, it really is getting more and more unified. So if we just stayed in the hosted PBX space and increased the feature sets or the pricing model, I think we would find ourselves irrelevant, 5-10 years. And so it really is about just progressing the technology and making what we think is virtual office more than a phone system into a virtual office.
Now, when you mentioned the hosted PBX offering, what's the traction been like, especially given the economy? I know there's been a lot of interest generally in the hosted space.
Right. What we saw, or what we have seen, is voice over IP and the hosted PBX seems to be becoming more mainstream. I mean, we're certainly not there yet, but companies are really considering it as an alternative to classic telephone systems that they might get, a PBX or a Centrex or a key system out there. So, for example, July and August are traditionally slower months. We've seen historically ever since we've gotten in the business space, and we've had really great July and August compared to where we've had before. And one of the things we've also noticed, our customers are small business. We on average sold, let's say at the end of last year, 7 services. That might be 5 physical lines, a fax line, and an 800 number. Last month we sold 11, so we see larger and larger businesses, still not necessarily the enterprise level for us, but certainly larger and larger businesses coming to a hosted solution versus just the 1 and 2 line guy that may be looking at a residential service on steroids kind of offering.
Is it all about cost savings? Is that why?
I think it's cost savings with a feature set. Because once you're a business, even if I have 5 or 6 people, I may want an auto attendant. I want a ring group. And chances are I'm probably going to have a remote employee. I think the way businesses do business now is very different, So there may be a remote employee, a consultant they're using, a marketing graphic designer. And so the hosted solution allows everybody to look like they're in the same location and look like they're a unified business. So I think it's the feature set with the cost savings.
And consistency over the business.
Correct.
Are there any specific types of businesses or verticals that you're seeing increased attention from? Yes,
well, we seem to have always done well, and we seem to be accelerating in communications intensive businesses like financial and insurance advisors or brokers and real estate. But one of the things we've noticed in the last couple months, especially in 2009, is even the government is putting out RFPs that are specifically asking for hosted VoIP services for the offices or whatever. And so we've been responding to some GSA, and we think once the government has now sort of put their seal of approval, this is an adequate and sufficient service that can compete with the traditional telephone services of the last 100 years. It speaks volumes to where the industry has gone and where it is today.
It's interesting that the government entities are going in after the hosted space.
Right.
It's good to see. Good congratulations on that, I guess.
It's specifically asked, so it's not that they've asked for a solution and we've said we think a hosted PBX is the right solution. They've specifically asked for it. So I think it speaks well for the industry.
Good. That's great news.
Yes.
I've been talking with 8x8's Debbie Jo Severin. Debbie Jo, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.